A warm welcome. You're tuned in to Eye on Africa. I'm Rochelle Ferguson-Biahi with the top stories on the continent. 13 years after it first began, the UN ends its peacekeeping mission in Ivory Coast, saying the West African nation is now at peace. South Africa's Jacob Zuma calls on the ruling ANC to reform and turn around its fortunes. This as he admits the party suffered due to corruption and divisions. And colours and fabrics galore, designers descend on the Senegalese capital armed with their latest collections. All this for the 15th edition of the Dakar Fashion Week. But first, the United Nations has ended its peacekeeping mission in Ivory Coast 13 years after it began, saying the country is now at peace. Well, peacekeeping troops first arrived back in 2004 when a failed coup attempt sparked civil war, splitting the country in two. Well, the mission also played a decisive role when Ivory Coast descended into chaos 6 years later. This after presidential elections. Many have praised the mission's success. Others say recent army mutinies show that peace is still fragile. France 24's Arnaud Froger reports from Abidjan.
Ivory Coast has come a long way since UN troops were first sent in 2004. Back then, the country was split by a civil war. The crisis peaked in the post-electoral clashes of 2010 after former President Laurent Gbagbo refused to step down and accept Alassane Ouattara's poll victory. Around 3,000 people died in the conflict and more than 11,000 peacekeeping soldiers were deployed at the time. Since 2011, the UN mission has supported the re-establishment of stability. It helped more than 250,000 refugees resettle in their former communities and worked to ease tensions between rival ethnic groups. But as the UN mission is closing, security is still an issue here. About 70,000 pro-Atarax fighters have been reintegrated into the army or civil society. However, a wave of recent mutinies highlights serious flaws in this process. Stability has also been eroded by the many weapons readily available around the country, and although the UN mission is being wrapped up, United Nations independent experts are still looking into a substantial cache of weapons found during the last mutiny in May. Last year, the very same investigators accused the current National Assembly President Guillaume Soro of having smuggled about 300 tons of firearms into Ivory Coast. So the threat really that military unrest could undermine progress so far remains very real.
In other news, South Africa's parliament has scheduled a motion of no confidence in President Jacob Zuma for August the 3rd. The decision comes on the same day the ruling ANC kicked off its 5th National Policy Conference. Well, speaking earlier, Zuma admitted the party is beset with corruption and divisions and called for the ANC to cleanse itself of hostility. Have a listen to Zuma speaking earlier.
Factionalism is a cancer that must be rooted out of the ANC. It has caused splits from the ANC, which has negatively affected us both quantitatively and qualitatively.
Well, still in South Africa, the scandal over leaked emails between the government and the wealthy Gupta family continues. Caroline Dumais and Stephen Carson's report on what's been dubbed the Gupta leaks.
In South Africa, every morning holds a surprise. One of the most recent is Jacob Zuma's alleged mansion in Dubai, worth 20 million euros. South Africans have also been reading about Zuma's son's business deals. For the last few weeks, South African journalists have been publishing the Gupta leaks, an email thread demonstrating the influence of the Guptas, an Indian family very close to the presidency.
It's, I suppose, equivalent to what WikiLeaks was. There are hundreds of thousands of emails, so we will be chipping away at this for a very long time. And a lot of the low-hanging fruit is out of the way, so perhaps some of the most damning stuff is yet to emerge.
But the Gupta leaks are not only about economic deals. The Gupta brothers spied on businessmen as well as politicians, creating files on their foreign travels. Security experts say this is worrying, as such information could not be accessed without the complicity of Home Affairs officials.
that would suggest that they are tracking them for some purpose. And we don't know what that purpose is, but the suspicion is that it wouldn't be for very positive reasons. It could be for intimidation, for threatening, and that's what the concern is.
Although the revealing details of the Gupta leaks are spreading quickly, no one can tell if this will end Zuma's presidency. In Parliament, he must still face a motion of no confidence.
Kenya has become the first African country to launch a generic version of a new HIV drug. It's the first time patients will have access to the more affordable version of dolutegravir, or also known as BTG. Before now, Kenyan patients forked out between $50 and $60 for a 30-day supply. They'll now pay just $4 a pack. The details with France 24's Nicolas Germain.
This is DTG, the new HIV drug that will be given to 20,000 Kenyans before being rolled out in Nigeria and Uganda later this year. Kenya is the first African country to launch a generic version of this drug, which was first approved in the US in 2013. DTG is used by those who have never taken antiretroviral therapy before, and for those like Dautius Togutu who suffered side effects with her previous treatment.
You have constant nightmares where you take the drugs and then you go to bed and you're just dreaming of weird things. You're either in a cemetery, or you're dreaming about snakes, or you're dreaming about dead people, or funny things, like things out of this world.
Kenyan authorities estimate that 1.5 million people live with HIV in the country, but only around 2/3 receive treatment.
It's becoming increasingly difficult to find the last 400,000 people, because some people living with HIV don't know that they have HIV. So in the same breath, we have therefore introduced self-testing so that Kenyans can get to know their HIV status.
Sub-Saharan Africa is home to nearly 3/4 of all people with HIV/AIDS. But thanks to increased testing, treatment and awareness, progress is being made. In Kenya, for example, the number of new infections has almost halved over the last decade to 80,000 a year.
A change in pace now. Designers and stylists have been descending on the Senegalese capital to unveil their latest collections at the 15th edition of Dakar Fashion Week. Well, catwalk shows will be held this weekend in one of the capital's top hotels, but so as not to leave anyone out, models have also been strutting their stuff in the streets. Sarah Sacco reports from Dakar.
A dozen African fashion designers presented their collections on Tuesday during Dakar Fashion Week's street parade. Models took to a red carpet catwalk under the spotlights and the gazes of an eager public, like at all fashion weeks around the world, but with just one difference. The catwalk was on the side of a busy road in Yari, a working-class neighbourhood in the heart of Dakar.
It's the first time that I've seen this in Senegal, people doing a fashion show like this. I really enjoyed it.
This is such a good event. Really good, because it's here in the neighborhood, in Yari. We're really pleased.
I loved it. I just loved it. I enjoyed it because I can't wait to get on a catwalk like that. It's lovely.
It's the 5th year in a row that Dakar Fashion Week's hosted some of its events in low-income neighbourhoods of the capital. Adama Paris is the woman behind the concept. The Senegalese designer wanted to make fashion accessible to all.
All the fashions of the world are inspired by the street, by the people on the streets. And that's why it's shocking to me that people can't see how fashion is being made today. It's important. Fashion is like music. It nourishes the soul. It's important that young people can dream of glitz and glamour.
And the glitz and glamour was heavily visible thanks to the designers and their creativity. Sakya Lek is Congolese. She divides her time between Brazzaville and Texas.
I came across this fabric that reminded me of the universe. It reminded me a bit of the galaxy. I said to myself, I want to make a collection of hope. Hope found, hope shared through this collection.
Fashion shows will take place until Sunday, this time in one of Dakar's luxury hotels.
And finally, we head to Morocco, where the 20th edition of the Essaouira Music Festival is in full swing. Over the past 2 decades, the events steadily gained momentum on the international scene. Among those performing are the Brazilian percussionist Carlinhos Brown and the Ghanaian musician Mohamed Kouyu. Our correspondent sent us this report from Essaouira, Morocco's windy city.
Essaouira is commonly known as Morocco's windy city. This is where the annual Ganawa Festival has made its home for the past 20 years. The audience is always growing in size and diversity. This year, over 200,000 are expected.
For me, Gnawa is life. It's the world. It's something incredible. This is our Moroccan culture.
Moroccan culture, but also a secular tradition, represented by this group from the south of the country. Their music has its roots in slavery, a style that could have disappeared if it wasn't for the festival.
20 years ago, the Gnawas were just seen as street performers, almost like beggars. There was little interest in their history, their heritage and their culture.
The festival stage also acts as a cultural crossroads. Every year, the Gnawa Masters invite international musicians to perform with them.
We've done it for 14 years, and there's always the same feeling, that we've learned a lot. We've gained a lot of experience from playing with all the international musicians that we've shared this stage with.
This year, leading Brazilian percussionist Carlinhos Brown has come to Morocco. A dark history of slavery is not the only link between the insistent dance of Gnawa and Brazilian capoeira. The two styles complement each other and yet produce an unfamiliar sound.
The Malem understand capoeira and all of Brazilian culture.
After 20 years, the Malem have become masters in Gnawa music and are still the unquestioned heroes of the Essaouira festival.
Your Eye on Africa team will be back in about 15 minutes' time. Up next, more international headlines. Thomas Waterhouse is here. You're watching France 24.
Hello there, this is Live from Paris on France 24.
Get connected with France 24 social media. Take the first step. Tweet, like, become a fan of, break away from your TV. Find another dimension. Become even more linked up to the news with France24.com, together with our mobile and tablet apps. France 24. Get a connected view of the world.